what today is.
Thanks, yeah.
After over 30 years of service, we originally were going to have a thing today to cancel that, and he said he'd come back in a couple of months to celebrate, but then knowing Fred, we feel like he might fall off the radar, so we've got him and Dwayne here to talk a little bit.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
thanks.
We're on? We are. Everybody ready? Ready. Better be. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 30th, 2020 meeting of the Delaware County Board of Commissioners. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I'm Jeff Benton, President of the Board. To my right is Vice President Commissioner Gary Merrill, and to his right is our County Administrator, Mike Frommer. To my left is our fellow Commissioner. Are you going to run the meeting? Okay. Our fellow Commissioner, Barb Lewis, and then Sarah DeNova, our clerk, is going to do the meeting today, so we can begin.
Resolution number 20-377, in the matter of approving the electronic record of proceedings for regular meeting held April 23rd, 2020.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-377. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-378, in the matter of approving purchase orders, bid and now certificates, and payments and warrants and batch numbers CMAPR 04.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Vote on motion 20-378. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-379, in the matter of approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Delaware County Board of Commissioners, the Delaware County Sheriff, Delaware County Jail, and the U.S. Department of Justice to house federal detainees.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Welcome.
Morning, Commissioners. Jeff Balzer, Delaware County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy. I'm before you this morning to talk about the intergovernmental agreement or contract with the U.S. Marshals. The Delaware County Sheriff's Office has housed federal prisoners for decades. The most recent contract was signed, I believe it's back in March of 2009. At that time, it established a daily rate to hold a prisoner was $65 a day, and it allowed for a little over $24 an hour for a guard rate, basically when we transport a prisoner somewhere for the U.S. Marshals. We sought to have an increase in this. Last spring, we came before you for a contract for a vendor to assist us with this, and it took several months getting the data together. It was rather a pretty good sized lift because they wanted a lot of documentation. We got it from both our jail, from our personnel, human resources, our facilities management, the auditor's office. Ultimately, what the U.S. Marshals came up with was a calculation that we agreed to back and forth of a new rate of $83 a day plus a $36 hourly rate.
Plus what?
$36 an hour for the guard transport, and then $83 a day per prisoner. Just to give you an idea of what difference that'll make, right now our numbers are down everywhere, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We currently have, I believe, 10 federal prisoners. At our current rate of $65, that would generate approximately $237,000, a little over that, for a year. At the new rate of $83 a day, that would be $302,000, almost $303,000, an increase of $65,700. So it's fairly substantial. The contract is for 5 years. We were able to get the rate raised a little bit because we said we wouldn't come back for at least 5 years, which I think is reasonable since it's been at least 11 since we did it last time. The contract, if you look at it, it's specifically, we entered into it because of the prisoners for the U.S. Marshal Service, which we house. It also allows on there, if we were to choose, for us to hold prisoners for the Immigration Customs Enforcement and the Bureau of Prisons. For the Immigration Customs Enforcement, they've approached us before, but we've never wanted to at that time to house these inmates. There's actually a couple extra steps we'd have to go through to do that, so it's not as though we could just start accepting them tomorrow. The Bureau of Prisons is different. That one has to do with halfway house failures. So if someone was in a halfway house for for the Bureau of Prisons down in Columbus, and they committed some violation, and maybe they had to serve out a sentence of 3 to 6 months, then they would serve it in a local contracted jail facility, and that's something we could do. That's really not that much different than the federal prisoners we're holding right now. So if you have any other questions about the federal inmates we hold or anything with this contract, I'm available and hopefully have the answers for you.
Do we have the ability, let's say we were close to full occupancy, we can decline to take federal prisoners?
Oh, sure. Even though it's got on there, I think the numbers on this one, it's kind of interesting too, how they came up with this. I think they had 20 males and 5 females. That's just a general guideline. If we wanted to hold more than that, if our population supported that, we could do that. If we can say, we can also tell them, no, we can't hold any people. And we've done that. A lot of it depends on our classification, which I've kind of talked about before. Even though the jail during normal times can hold up to, I think, 286 people, it's like a puzzle. We've got so many different areas. All federal inmates, when they come to our facility, start out as at least a medium classification. We've got, for medium, we can put them in dormitory settings, which offers us a lot of flexibility. However, if they've got previous crimes or if it's a very serious crime, then they go into the maximum classification, and that is where we have a lot fewer cells. That's why we really look over the request from the marshals each time they request one to be held by us.
Yeah, the other comment I have, every year on the budget, I think I asked the question, what about raising the rates? So I'm very much pleased to see that we are adjusting the rates. 10 years was a long time, and obviously
Yes.
things changed in 10 years. Glad to see it's only 5.
Right.
And I'm glad to see the changes, so my compliments.
Something related to that, Commissioner, too, we intend to use this rate moving forward for anyone we hold prisoners for. So we have, I know we've got a contract with Licking County, we've got one with Knox County, we've got one with Union County, we've got one with Pike County to be able to hold their inmates. So once the current contracts expire, we would use that rate. And that's just because I think we're best served by sticking with one rate. We put an awful lot of effort into establishing this rate, and we're certainly not looking to gouge or take advantage of our local partners, but this is what our actually costs are. So we want to stick with that rate moving forward.
And I like the fact that we can refuse the prisoners. I would never want to expand the jail because we have too many federal prisoners. This gives us, what I'm going to call a buffer that we can work
Right.
with, and I think that's good for the county and good for the program. So.
I agree.
Is this the first time that we've been able to hold people that ICE wants us to hold?
No. The current contracts had the same language in there. It's
Oh, okay.
standard. They did that. This harkens back to when the Immigration Service was part of the Department of Justice. And so the primary prisoner holding entities in the government were the U.S. Marshals, Immigration at that time, or Customs Enforcement, and the Bureau of Prisons. So when they would write a contract for one, they would include all the entities
Oh,
into
okay.
it. So even though it's been in there for a long time, we haven't done it. And we've had discussions back and forth. There's actually some, I would say, hoops or difficulties we've faced in the Ohio Revised Code with holding some of the immigration prisoners. We've talked with our counsel before from the prosecutor's office, and it's not something that the sheriff is interested in pursuing at this time, but we do have a great relationship with ICE. They do lodge detainers with us on people that we're holding on other charges, and they're pretty darn prompt. If we're going to release somebody, we try to give them advance notice, and they come and pick them up pretty promptly when we're ready to release them then.
Oh, okay,
Well, that
great.
encourages us to work with ICE whenever we can.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you'd mentioned we have 10 now. What has it been tracking over the last few years? Is that lower than normal?
It is lower than normal. I think I'd like to see it around maybe 20 when we get back to, quote, normal times, at least. We went from a high back in the maybe 2008, 2009, around 70, which was kind of crazy. That's before we were doing classification. At that time, I think the reason was we've got bed space, let's fill it up with somebody. And once we implemented classification, I think we were down around 30 or so. And overall, our jail population, we're very fortunate in Delaware County, has been going down over the past few years. We're really an anomaly as far as jails in Ohio and across the country. So I would expect that maybe when this is done, we'd probably be somewhere around the 20 range.
Okay. What about liability? You know, the county's liability for when we house these federal prisoners.
I guess
How do we protect ourselves?
we did kind of go back and forth, and there's one specific section, I don't have the agreement in front of me, that Vince Villio from the prosecutor's office, assistant prosecutor, he had a question about one specific as it pertained to liability. And the Marshal Service had a substitute. They're fairly rigid in the federal government contracts that a lot of times they say, here's the language, either take it or you don't. But in this specific area, they'd had questions before, and it kind of addressed Vince's concerns. And that's one of the first things I do. I've worked very closely with Vince throughout this process. He was satisfied that we were covered and we didn't have too much liability on this.
Okay, okay.
I do have one other thought. The question, we had an issue a few years ago regarding health, who's responsible for the medical. When we take them as a prisoner, it shifted to the county rather than to Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. Is that still in place or has that changed?
For the federal prisoners, they pay for it.
Okay.
They pay for it all. We, basically, we've got a separate billing each month, and it's for not only the transportation and average daily stay, but also for the medical. We bill them for the medical expenses as well.
In local prisoners, when we took them into our jails, they became our, is that still the case or has that changed?
That's my understanding it is. I know Cassie Neff, we've worked with Cassie, and that's something that we would hope it'd be addressed at some point, that they wouldn't be automatically taken off the Medicaid rolls when they come into jail, but I believe that's still current that they are.
It makes absolutely zero sense.
I agree.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for the update. You filled in
Yeah.
the blanks for a lot of the questions I had, so appreciate that.
Are you going to give us an update after?
Yes.
You know, good, in a
We'll
minute.
take a vote.
After we vote.
Vote on motion 20-379. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Aye.
And I just want to give you an update on the jail, what's going on
Yes.
at the jail.
Thank you.
Our current population as of this morning is 96. And to give you a little perspective on that, as I mentioned, our maximum capacity for the jail is 286. We haven't been at that for quite a while. Back in February, we were running around 220 inmates a day. At the beginning of March, we dropped down a little bit to around 190. Right when the whole coronavirus outbreak occurred, we met with our local judges, and that's common police and municipal, and plus both prosecutors. We asked them and our law enforcement partners to help us to basically reduce the population in the jail, to reduce the risk of introducing the COVID-19 into our facility. And that's to protect not only the inmates, but our staff as well. And we've had success so far. We've decreased the population, and that's through, it's not that agencies aren't arresting people. They can still arrest people if they deem there's a violation. But instead of bringing those people to jail, they're only bringing them to jail if it's a serious or violent offense. Otherwise, they're issuing them a summons to go to court at a later date. The courts and the prosecutors have been wonderful too, reviewing cases of people already in jail to determine if they believe it's appropriate for them to be released on some type of bond. And I make that distinction because we had a few media outlets call and ask us, what were we recommending to the court? Did we send them a list of people we wanted released? And I said, absolutely not. I trust our local judicial officials and our prosecutors. We sent them a list of people that are being held in the jail, and it was up to them to determine whether or not they should be released. They're the ones that ordered them held in jail, so it's up to them to determine. And they've done a great job. I really think they have. They're holding hearings very promptly. Last night we had several were arrested, as happens every day. They go through them. If they believe that this person might be a danger to the community, then they're held. If they believe they're not a danger to the community, then they're released on some type of bond. So it's been a great partnership. Some of the things we've done to try to eliminate, or not eliminate, but reduce the risk, we followed the directions from the State Department of Rehab and Corrections. When the governor put out, we stopped any visitors, limited access to the jail. Those people who do come to the jail, whether it's arresting officers or contractors, even our county maintenance, each time they come into the facility, they have a screening form we go over and also have their temperature taken. And that includes me every day. I have to have mine filled out and ready and checked before I go over. It's been almost 3 weeks now that everyone in the jail, all the staff, are wearing masks. We have a contracted medical provider, and they're doing a really good job too. Lots of extra effort on them, on the nurses. We also have a contracted medical doctor, a jail physician, Dr. Betty Mitchell. And Dr. Mitchell does a wonderful job. It just happens she also has a master's in public health. So she's given us all kinds of guidance throughout this process as to best practices. We've increased the cleaning throughout the facility, and not just one time. We're doing it constantly. Each shift, the officers are doing it almost hourly. When they go through and they do their rounds through, they're making sure that certain high traffic areas, whether it's the inmates' phones that they use or different things, are cleaned constantly. The inmates, too, are being required to clean their areas as well. We make sure that the soap, antibacterial soap, is always filled for the inmates because they've got a place to wash their hands. Our staff has the, I call it germ juice, but what we need to use for the folks to keep their hands clean. We're doing constant checks in there. When an inmate or an arresting officer comes in to the facility, they stay in the sally port. One of our nurses goes out to the sally port and checks both of them, takes their temperature, does a quick screening on them to make sure they're okay just to even come into our facility. Once they come into our facility, the inmate is quarantined. Once we accept them, quarantined in an area for at least 14 days to keep them away from the rest of the inmates. It's not perfect. Unfortunately, we don't have 100 separate little cells we can keep people each individually, but we keep them separate from the general population for at least 14 days to make sure that they're not symptomatic. We have identified different areas of the jail. One of the things we're looking at, we've got 2 medical cells which have separate ventilation. That's wonderful, but it's 2. We realized we needed more than that. Talking with county maintenance, they identified another area that was also separately ventilated. That was our I dorm, which used to hold women in a dorm-like setting. That's separately ventilated. So we've identified different areas of the jail that if we need to quarantine people, we've got space to do it. One of the benefits of having the jail population reduced is that we can now spread inmates out. We can also empty out certain housing areas. We've got 2 dormitories. Each dormitory can hold 96 inmates. So it's 24, 24, 24, 24. We've shut down an entire dormitory. So right now it's J dorm is shut down. Previously it was K. We've switched them a couple times. And we do that so we clean them. We go through, and this is our opportunity to clean them. So we've got an entire dormitory that's available if we need to separate people. We also have shut down a few areas in men's housing, which are higher security, in case we have people we need to keep separate and their security issue. We've got that available too. I'm really proud of our staff. The director, the assistant directors, and all the COs have done a great job. We have put in certain safety protocols. We've realized we've asked more of the COs, but they've done more. So we're fortunate right now that we have not had anyone test positive for COVID-19, either among our staff or inmates.
Great.
I certainly can't guarantee that moving forward. It's a virus. We all realize how that can get introduced. But we are certainly doing our darndest to keep it out as best we can.
Boy, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I would like to congratulate you on solving a recent murder case. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Detective Rusty Yates and Detective Jeff Bessinger were the assigned detectives on that case. And I know a few years ago they had heard, they're always constantly checking, trying to find best ways to solve crimes. And we do have a cold case unit that they look into old unsolved homicides. They found a company that was helping law enforcement agencies try to go through old DNA, different samples from different available databases. They worked with this company, and it wasn't just an automatic like you send it in and it's a hit. There was a lot of work. They kind of narrowed it down. they came down to a certain family they believed that might be pertinent to. Ultimately, through interviews, through some other samples they collected, and then cooperation with BCI, they narrowed it down to one person. And that person had some convictions for crimes related to children. And it was wonderful they could do it. You know, it's just amazing what technology we have now. Who knows what we'll have 30 or 40 years from now? But to hopefully, it won't bring back this boy. It won't throw this person into jail because the person died several years ago, the offender who we identified. But we hope that it brings the family some peace too.
Oh, sure.
And lets the community know that at least this person is not out there looking for new victims.
Sure, sure. Boy, thank you so much. I mean,
welcome.
that's just that determination.
It was very interesting.
It is.
Got some good media coverage, and like you said, it helps the family
Yes.
finalize their.
I thought it was especially interesting. I was listening to one of the radio interviews of Detective Rusty Yates, and Rusty does a great job. He and Detective Bessinger, both of them. But Rusty said this was the highlight of his career. He's been in law enforcement over 20 years, but solving this case was the highlight of his career.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's great. Again, thank you for the leadership and excellent management.
Yes, sir.
To keep the staff and the inmates safe. It's certainly what we want, and done a great job managing through it, just like all the offices and departments have done just an outstanding job for the
Yes.
county, you know, the residents, the employees, the businesses, et cetera. So, thank you.
Thank you. And the
Absolutely.
sheriff's done a great job. We come up with
Yes.
suggestions, he comes up with suggestions, he's quick to implement them. And like you said, with our partners too, we really couldn't do it. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize. Without the cooperation of the courts, with the prosecutors and other law enforcement agencies, we could be in a similar situation like some of these other correctional facilities.
Yeah. Yeah, some of
Well,
them had
you're
some-
very humble, too, about all these accomplishments, and we know
Great to
there's
see.
outstanding leadership and an just outstanding department. Thank you.
Thank you all for your
so
support
much.
too.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
very good. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Oop, now
Next door.
the wipes.
He's
you
even,
ready for the
he
next
remembers the wipes.
That's right.
You don't miss a beat, Chief.
Well, I was given some advice in advance, so I'm ready. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.
You too.
All right, Sarah?
Resolution number 20-380, in the matter of appointing a zoning inspector and zoning secretary.
So move. Oh, sorry. Second?
Discussion? I assume Fred's going to cover this topic? You're up, or one of you is up.
I'm up.
We already read the resolution.
Oh, okay. Fred Fowler with Code Compliance, here to answer any questions. We're here to appoint a zoning inspector and a zoning secretary as required by the zoning resolution, and strongly recommend Dwayne Matlack, who's with me, as a zoning inspector. He's currently listed as the assistant zoning inspector, and Jamie Upchurch as the secretary. So both well qualified to serve those roles.
I have a question. Fred, why do we need to do this?
What's that?
Why do we need to do this?
Because I'm currently the zoning inspector, and this will be my last day.
Yeah.
Got him to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, right.
I need to get that out of you.
Yes,
so I-
yeah. I was waiting, but I'm glad you asked.
That's a good way of
Yeah.
getting there.
I don't know if this is appropriate time, but maybe we should vote
Yeah,
first.
let's
but
vote.
let's
We'll go ahead and
Oh,
take a vote.
okay.
Vote on resolution number 20-380. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you.
And now Fred can give his retirement speech.
We were gonna have Wayne come up here in my comments, but since you're in here now, maybe we can do it now.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
seems appropriate, I think.
sure.
Sure.
Want his comments first?
Yeah, maybe you want
Welcome, Dwayne.
Thank you. Dwayne Matlack, obviously, Code Compliance. I was asked to come over and say a few things with regards to Fred. And like I say, it's a somber day for me. We've worked together for 29 years, and we've bounced a lot of things off of each other over the years in order to keep things flowing smoothly over at the office. First thing I was going to say is, does anybody know what this is? Probably don't. 30
Zoning
years-
code from
This
30
is
years ago?
the Building code.
Building code, okay.
30 years ago, we enforced the 1964 County Commissioners Code. This is all that there was.
Oh, my.
So when Fred started, this was what we enforced. Things have changed drastically. I thought about bringing over the books that we do now because of how drastically things changed, but when you put the Ohio Building Code, the Ohio Mechanical Code, the Plumbing Code, fuel gas codes, all those that have expanded over the years, then it's about 3 feet long. So from this to this. So
Oh, gosh.
it's taken a lot of learning over the years, a lot of changes. So I just thought that was interesting that in 30 years' time, how drastically things have changed. In this book, there's also things, so 30 years ago, the Dark Ages, slate chips were required under beams for spacers. It's just some of the things that were in there were just kind of archaic based on what we see today. So very different. Fred started in March of 1990. Is that correct? Who would have thought about how much the codes have changed over the years? When he started, there was a staff of 4. And the county had started growing rapidly at that time and has expanded. In 2000, there were 31 employees with code compliance and, before the recession. So it had grown rapidly, and Fred had overseen all of that through that time period, which would have been a lot of work and a lot of interviews, I'm guessing. So he's seen a lot of changes and guided the department over the years. During that 30-year period, Fred has overseen the issuance of over 110,000 building permits. Wow. And over 700,000 building inspections. Wow. So in that 30-year period, that is a lot of work that he has supervised. Fred's dedicated to being a public servant. I think we all know that. He's very passionate about what he does and enforces the rules fairly. Has a strong work ethic. I don't think if you took into account, and I can only say these things because I've been here a long time too, but probably count on one hand or two hands how many days he's missed over 30 years, sick leave. Pretty amazing. I'm glad to call him boss. I'll miss him drastically. And I have to do this, Fred, but over the years, there was one saying that people would always say when we were talking with Fred or something that Fred said, and they would always say, "You know Fred." Now, I've thought and I've pondered that for a while, and no, it's good, and I've pondered it, and I'm glad to say that yes, I know Fred, and I'm better for it. So he's taught me a lot over the years. So hate to see him go. I've asked him if he could stay around a while, but I do consider you a friend and mentor. So we had a lot more plans for him, which unfortunately we weren't able to do. And hopefully here in the near future with your approval, we can get him back in here when things open up and give him a proper send-off. Yeah, hopefully he hasn't decided he doesn't want to come back. So we'll see how that goes. So that's basically in a nutshell what I have to say. And
Okay,
congratulations, Fred.
Yeah.
great.
Congratulations to you too,
Yeah.
Dwayne.
Thanks,
Thank
Dwayne.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I can fill his shoes. It's going to take a lot of teaching and nudging and a lot of the things that he did, I didn't do, so.
That's
Very well be.
Dwayne.
Or maybe better not to, I don't know. So we'll see, but I will do my best to,
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
to fill
Thank
his
you,
shoes and keep
Dwayne.
things running smoothly. So,
Thank you,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay, Mike, did you have?
I didn't have anything.
No, nothing else
I
to,
don't know if Fred wants to give a
Yeah,
speech or, like, make a few comments.
go,
sure, please.
Dwayne, thanks for the kind words. Yeah, it's 30 years. It's hard to believe it's been 30 years. It's gone quickly. It's been good. It's been a good fit for me. I like public service. Proud of our staff over the years. We are regulators. We enforce codes, as Dwayne was explaining, all the codes that we have to enforce, but I think we've done a good job, and I hope others feel this way too, that I think we've done a good job at balancing regulations and customer service, and being able to be friendly and polite and respectful of our customers. We've tried to make that message to our staff over the years, so hopefully we've accomplished that. Great group of people over there, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of dedication. And I've been blessed to work with them. I've been blessed to work with so many people in the county, the various departments under the commissioners, departments under other elected officials. It's been good. I've learned a lot. I've been helped a lot, and developed a lot of good working relationships with people. So I'm very fortunate for that. And I thank your board for all you've done for me and being treated fairly and respectfully. I've always felt that, and that's good to know, and good to be able to walk in here and know that you'll get a fair shake. And so that's been very helpful and appreciated. So a big thanks, and Mike, thank you. And with the thanks to Mike and the board, I say that to other boards and other county administrators that I've worked with. I've felt the same way with those past opportunities, and thanks to all the staff and been so gracious. So thank you.
great, thank you. Commissioner Merrill, and
Well, I definitely have a couple of comments.
Sure.
I guess I've known Fred longer than the two of you because I've been a commissioner longer than the two of you. And Dwayne used the word, he's passionate. He's also quiet. He's a man of few words, and but when you speak, it's usually with a purpose. And I've been very privileged to work with you. When I became a commissioner in 2013, I didn't know much about a lot of the processes in the county. And one of the things I learned early was the BIA was frustrated because of the time it taken to get permitting done, et cetera. And you and I and others worked to get, they were willing to pay more, but get it done in a more efficient manner. We worked out a program which allowed us to do that and basically make sure we cover our cost. And it was a win-win for everyone. And 3-4 years ago, you two and I were at a dinner with BIA where they acknowledged the job that you guys were doing. And I don't know, you remember that, I'm sure. And,
Oh, sure, that was very nice of you, yes.
And
Very proud
then
of
I
that.
remember the Outlet Mall, all those buildings come online really in a very short time frame.
That's right.
And we did a really, really good job of getting them done and working with their schedules and getting it done in a timely fashion. So I just appreciate all you've done. I've appreciated knowing you, and I know Dwayne's going to do a great job, but thank you for everything you've done and helping me do my job. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you too, Fred, for all you've done, and I think those are, being recognized by the BIA when you're in code compliance is really something. I mean, that's great. You've done a wonderful job, and I love to tease you whenever I see you at the office, because I always ask Fred, I said, did you walk over here? Because he would walk from the engineers building over here so many times. I mean, even if it was cold.
I was usually walking
run.
to and from home, not necessarily from here to there, but yes, I've
Well,
walked a lot and I've enjoyed it, yes.
Yeah, I saw you though, walking from your office to here too, which is very, very admirable. But I wanted to ask you what you were most looking forward to doing in your retirement.
Having more time for other opportunities. I enjoy outdoors, so I enjoy the hiking and the kayaking and canoeing. So I'm sure I hope to have many of those type experiences, walking maybe more out in the woods and on the sidewalks.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm looking forward to that. You know, I said earlier, I like public service, and I like helping people, and I have interest in, you know, working for volunteer organizations around the community and through our church, and assisting others that maybe need an extra hand.
That's great.
So that'll be part of my retirement. And a little bit more flexibility and maybe traveling a little bit with my wife and family, and so.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You will be needed, I'm sure, and will provide much help, besides having a good time, too. Yeah, thank you, Fred.
Yep,
Thank
Fred,
you very much.
maybe you could take up golf. I play a lot of golf and spend a lot of time in the woods. So,
That's an interesting point.
And you can
I-
walk, you don't have to ride.
you can walk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably won't take up golf. I
You don't
haven't
think so?
yet, and the twisting on my body might be a better thing to avoid, but it's probably a great game, but I've never taken it up, so.
Oh, you're smart. But yeah, again, Commissioner Merrill and Commissioner Lewis have really pretty much covered the highlights that I remember at the time I was new, but I remember being especially impressed with the BIA award, because, you know, they're not an easy grader. I mean, they're demanding and good people and so on, but they have a very important mission, and you guys were working extremely well together, and that's just a real compliment. Code compliance is one of those things that's kind of behind the scenes. It's not out in front. And, you know, you see the results in subtle ways. You know, we have a beautiful community, you know, the residences, the businesses, et cetera. And that's, you know, largely, you know, the code compliance is a huge, huge factor in making sure that that happens. You know, very beautiful community, a safe community, so on. So thank you for all of that, because that's a big, big part of why it's such a special place. You know, we do have 3 feet wide of code to comply with, and do a great job of making sure that happens. So again, thank you, and good luck. And hopefully we'll see you in a couple months when we can have a gathering of more than,
Yes.
we got 10 people now, 10 people. So,
We'll get a photo op when we do that. It's
Yeah,
kind of hard to do that when
Yeah,
you've got
right,
6 feet
yeah,
apart.
right, yeah, wide-angle lens or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Understood.
All
Thank
right,
you.
well,
Thanks
thank you.
for-
Thank you,
Thanks for the
Fred.
kind words. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Yep.
you so
Fred, God
much.
bless you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Guess this is protocol, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think Tiffany's a newbie, so she wipe it down so she doesn't get all her germs on. Yeah, never had germs, do you? Or get the sand from the podium.
All right, thanks, Fred.
Hey, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
Resolution number 20-381, in the matter of approving the sanitary sewer improvement plans for North Lake Preserve, Section 3 and 4.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion.
Morning, Commissioners. Tiffany Mag, Director of Environmental Services. So this is a single-family development that's going to be done by MI Homes. It's located off of 3Bs and K and 4 Worms Drive near I-71. There's 63 lots total in this subdivision.
Okay, vote.
Vote on the motion 20-381. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-382, in the matter of approving amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with DLZ Ohio Incorporated for on-call construction testing and inspection services.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
So this is an increase to an original contract that we had for $25,000. We're adding another $24,900. And the reason for that is because we've had a very busy 2020 in the winter thus far. And we've had a couple projects that have taken longer for the developers to finish than they originally anticipated. So we need to extend those funds. And once again, these are paid in full by the developers as part of their inspection fees.
Okay, vote.
Vote on motion 20-382. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-383, in the matter of approving terms and conditions of the VT SCADA, what's this name? Software licensing agreement with Trihedral Incorporated for the VT SCADA software upgrades to the Allen Creek Water Reclamation Facility.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
So this is part of our Alum Creek treatment plant upgrade project that we were doing for the mixers and the aeration system. It was ongoing all of last year, and it continues through now. Actually, it's kind of, because of the pandemic, it's taken us a little bit longer to be able to get this SCADA upgraded. So what we're trying to do here is, this has already been paid for as part of that project. We're not having you approve the cost, we're having you just approve the terms and conditions that Eric Hostetler has indicated need to be signed by the commissioners. So what this software does is it upgrades us from an older version of the SCADA system to this newer software, which is called VT SCADA. And it's something that we'll eventually be doing at all of our plants and pump stations as we do upgrades at those facilities as well.
Okay. Yeah, I had a couple questions on this, and you filled me in, so I appreciate that. And vote.
Vote on motion 20-383. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-384, in the matter of certification of delinquent accounts to the county auditor for accounts to be assessed to payable year 2021 taxes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So these are our delinquent accounts that are past 90 days due, that are being certified to the taxes. And this quarter, we're at $156,308, which is equivalent to 4.28% of our accounts. This is actually the lowest delinquency rate that we've had since April of 2018, which is really good.
Yeah.
I also went ahead and asked our administrative staff what our last billing cycle looked like, just with this pandemic. And actually, our delinquency rate was right in line with where it always is. So we didn't see a much higher delinquency in the payments that were due, I think, March 10th-ish. Would have been right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we'll continue to monitor that. Our next billing cycle goes out May 1st. And we are going to be having some discussions about whether we want to maybe allow them to waive the late fees for that quarter. Mike and I will be starting those discussions with all three of you.
All right.
Also, I wanted to give you a quick update on the tap fees. We budgeted $695 for 2020, and thus far it's been very strong. We're at almost 55% of that number, about 380 taps so far through April.
Really?
Yeah. So we've been really busy with connections. I think it's just
Wow.
the future plans that are
Right.
coming through are a little slower.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question, and I apologize because I didn't ask you in advance. That neighborhood where we were talking about putting sewer in, the sewer lines in, I don't remember the name of it.
Harriet Road, by the Tartan Field Golf Course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where do we stand on that?
Woods of Glen Aaron, I
So
think.
we were getting ready to go forward with starting those hearings with the three of you, and felt like it probably made sense to just withhold that until
Because of
after the
our-
pandemic. We'll still go forward with the hearings once we can congregate in a room together and allow the homeowners to come in and voice their, in their opposition or, their, support for the project.
Thank you, I'm just curious because
I thought I'd seen, not too long ago, we postponed that.
Right, yep.
It's good.
You tentatively have a date in August set to save for that, but there hasn't been an official. We were going to try.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Have we voted on this yet? Let's vote.
Vote on motion 20-384. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Resolution number 20-385, in the matter of approving the right-of-way work permit summary sheet.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Good morning, Rob Riley, Chief Deputy Engineer. These are routine utility installation permits, and we're recommending approval.
Okay, vote.
Vote on motion 20-385. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 20-386, in the matter of declaring the necessity to improve Township Road number 409, Green Meadows Drive, and approving an engineering services agreement with IBI Group Incorporated for the project known as DEL-TR 409-2.73, Green Meadows Drive Extension.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
This is a project, a new project we'd like to initiate to make the connection between the new roundabout at Lewis Center and North Road going south to the new Home Road extension. So it will involve about a half mile of new roadway. The contract we've negotiated with IBI Group only involves the preliminary design of the roads, basically setting the alignment, the footprint of the right-of-way, and preparing the legal descriptions to acquire the right-of-way, hopefully have the right-of-way dedicated at no cost, but regardless, we'd like to be ready at some point to build this road. We're not in a tremendous hurry to do this project absent an end user that would need access to this road, but we want to be ready to do that when the time comes. We did previously, several months ago, have some interest in one of the parcels that are adjacent to this new road, and so that kind of spurred us to start looking at this, making sure we're ready to do that. So we think this is money well spent to get ready for the road. It will take more money to actually complete the design, but this is definitely the first step in doing that.
I thought this was interesting when I saw this. I wasn't expecting this as quickly as getting this started now.
Yep.
I think this will be this with the extension North Road up to Peach Blow, which is in process. It'll be a nice diversion away from 23, through that industrial area and then into the residential area and into the city of Delaware even. So do you have a timeline on when this part of it would be built, do you think?
Well, as of today, we would basically wait until there's interest from the abutting properties, from perhaps an end user that would be willing to contribute to the cost. If we reach the point where we feel like it's appropriate to move ahead, we can certainly have those discussions on how we would pay for it. We could be ready to build this as early as probably 2022. I'm not anticipating actually doing it before then, or that soon, I guess. But to your point, Commissioner, I think this is certainly this is one of two final links in that Green Meadows Drive, all the way from Powell Road at the south end,
All the way up?
Yeah.
really when you include the Winterbourne Drive extension in the city of Delaware, that's south of or between, Peach Blow and Cheshire Road. This would be a complete connection of a parallel road between Cheshire Road and Powell Road. So when you think about it that way, this really addresses, this is part of the network that addresses some of the US 23 corridor study needs and one of the priority projects it identified. So certainly appropriate to be ready for it, I think.
Good. It's good to see this move forward like this. Vote.
Vote on motion 20-386.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.
Resolution number 20-387, in the matter of reappointing members to the Board of Trustees of the Delaware County Transportation.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Any discussion? I guess I'd just like to thank the 5 individuals, Chris Boserman, Mike Fromer, Saikili, Pat Blaney, and Tom Price, for their service. This TID has really gotten going and has several big projects, either started or in the pipeline. So I want to thank this group for their service and accomplishments, because again, the TID is something we created a couple of years ago. Roughly, we kind of put it together, and it's really doing well. So good to see that they're willing to continue. We'll take a vote.
Vote on motion 20-387. Mr. Britton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Next, we have Director Bob Lamb.
Bob Lamb, Economic Development Director. My apologies, I thought Jane Hawes was ahead of me on the list, so. I'm here today just to provide a quick update regarding the Economic Recovery Advisory Team that the Commissioners authorized. We have some really good news on a few fronts. Would like to just start by saying thank you for your support on the property extension. I've heard from a lot of businesses regarding the extended 6-week period that they very much appreciate it. They think it will be helpful as they look at coming online over the next 2 weeks as the stay-at-home order is lifted. Also wanted to update you on the county CDBG process. We are working right now with Kilbourne and Brown Township to position funds that will be made available in the 2020 allocation to support redevelopment efforts in the downtown Kilbourne area that is tied with a private project that is continuing to move forward. So we are very excited to see the new investment moving forward in that regard. We are also looking at how to reallocate the remaining 2018 funds to assist the community as we see how the COVID-19 issue continues to affect residents and businesses. Regarding the advisory team, we've been working very closely with several different entities. We've seen movement on the Shop Local front, working with Destination Delaware, who's leading that effort. We have secured additional radio spots for small businesses to be able to take advantage of as they open up, to let people know they are open, to encourage them to shop. We, I believe, have now recorded 25 videos with small business owners that will be pushed out starting tomorrow, possibly even this afternoon, highlighting local businesses, letting people know they're opening, and just encouraging that activity. We are also looking in at how we can work with entities to secure cleaning supplies to help address opening issues that businesses are facing. That's probably one of the biggest items we're hearing from various entities, and there doesn't appear to be any overall structural plan for how to get those materials into businesses' hands at this time. But we are working to see what we can do to help with that issue as best we can, even if it is simply finding suppliers that the local businesses could reach out to try to address that issue and concern. Finally, on the revolving loan fund, we have seen good movement on that. We have reached out to several different banking institutions. We are waiting to receive one possible proposal that could hopefully address some of the key concerns that we have with the structure of that program and allow us to bring forward a recommendation to move forward to the commissioners that would address the concerns that you have raised as we have begun looking at this process. Happy to answer any questions that you have regarding these items at this time.
I had a question just about the business consulting services that the Economic Development Department is helping fund, or is funding with, and helping with local businesses. How's that going?
Very well. We've increased the number of service providers in the program as well. We have a lot of interest in the program. I believe it's around 20 at this point. I would have to double check what we've seen come in the last couple days. A lot of assistance really starting to move away from the SBA side of things and looking at other fiscal assistance, but a lot of questions coming in on staffing and employee and HR regulations, and we are working with Taft on a lot of those, as well as some other law firms, trying to address how the opening up policies will affect different entities. Also starting to hear the questions being raised on liability issues addressed to that. So we are working on several webinars, including one with Focus CFO that we'll be able to place on our website to help address some of these fiscal and legal questions that are coming about. Kelsey Scott from my office is leading that activity right now and trying to coordinate those items, along with Zach Dowley is working with Focus CFO specifically to get their webinar up and running.
That's great. Yeah, the liability is going to be a big issue in the coming months. We've got to do something, legislature hopefully, at both the federal and state level can legislate to protect the businesses and agencies and so on, retirement communities, nonprofits that have been providing services that could be at risk.
Yeah, boy, I'll second that.
Punitive
That's so
litigation.
important. Yeah, the liability protection.
Yeah, and it's good to see, you know, the businesses are finally getting the go-ahead to reopen slowly. I wish it were going faster, but at least we're going in the right direction. So,
Definitely hearing from the business community, they appreciate the fact that it's moving towards reopening. You know, some frustration on the small business side on what are going to be the rules, how to address it, especially with restaurants and bars not knowing exactly what it looks like today.
Yeah, I'd like to add a comment. Restaurants and bars, I'll add that in there, but you know, restaurants really need a defined date sooner rather than later, because they are not going to be able to get all the vegetables delivered the day before they're
Right,
opening. There's got to be a plan, and I think that's where, I'll say it, the state needs to be more proactive than they are currently, and I just hope that that gets addressed to the benefit of all the restaurants. Somebody that I know, who I'm not going to identify, predicts that about 25% of the restaurants will not reopen. I hope that number's wrong, but it's someone would be considered an expert in the industry. You've talked about shopping locally. In fact, I put something on my Facebook tonight. Basically, you know, the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Costcos have all benefited from the last few weeks. This is our opportunity to support the local businesses who have not been open. So I hope that anyone listening to this, and hopefully we need to find ways to say it over and over, support the local businesses who've been closed, help them get back on their feet. It's only fair at this point in time. My thoughts.
And what is, that opening date, is it May 12th?
Yes, May 12th for the retail and service side of items, but that does not include restaurants, gyms, hair salon type operations, and we have not heard back on the clarity of those items right now. I just would like to reiterate the fact that we have heard a lot of appreciation from the business community for the activities going on. Thank yous to the commissioners for letting my office and others work on these items to try to do what we can to help the business community. The advisory team has really done a lot of good work. The chairs, Steve Kuckler of the Property Tax Extension one, I know worked closely with the auditor and the treasurer's office to try to help structure it. Don Ranke with the revolving loan fund has been instrumental in trying to get information to the bank so that we could properly evaluate this process. So we'd just like to say special thanks to that whole team and the great work they've been doing.
yeah, they have, and it's all volunteer. They've all been doing a great job.
Well, they've also been trying to address issues with their own businesses or services as well.
Sure.
Yeah, one of the things I know your department started with surveys. What are you learning from the survey replies that you've gotten?
Yeah, we've gotten over 90 survey replies at this time, so sitting right around 10% of our key industry sector type contacts. So we factor in about 800 of those in there, so we appreciate those numbers. We're still engaging to try to get more. Overwhelmingly, the concerns have shifted from, you know, SBA and fiscal questions regarding what's going on to opening questions, especially on the liability side for employees. Seems to be a lot of what we're hearing is individuals were furloughed or laid off during this process, and how do you bring them back? How do you bring them back safely? And if you can't bring them back safely, what are the other options available for the business?
Good. Yeah, again, thanks to the
Thank
committee.
you.
Thanks to you, Bob, and
you,
Mike's
Sam.
been on
Right.
that committee as well, so thanks for the leadership there, and more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bob.
Sarah?
Resolution number 20-388, in the matter of adopting an updated Delaware County personnel policy.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Good morning. Excuse me, Dawn Houston, Deputy Administrator, and I'm recommending your approval of the updated Personnel Policy Manual.
Pages,
for
is it 35?
20.
35 legal pages.
Could you read this?
Yeah, can you?
We might be here all day if I do read it. Yeah, there's like 70 so pages of the policy manual. But it has been worked on with CORSA, the Best Practices Policy Manual Committee, as well as Eric Kostetler, our staff attorney. We have updated a lot of the language, just language cleanups really, and then updated the links to separate related policies. But then also, we have updates in certain sections that I'll just highlight quickly. In the Americans with Disabilities Act section, we have added a section for service animals, and those individuals who do have service animals that they need to assist them with their disabilities. We have also added genetic testing and ancestry to the list of unlawful discrimination and harassment in that section. The drug-free workplace section, we have added the new requirements for CDLs under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration clearinghouse. We also have added a section in the social media policy section for employees to discourage them from posting on their social media accounts for personal use during the workday. The family and medical leave section actually just corresponds with the changes that we made last year in terms of the concurrent leave use during family and medical leave, and then also the consistent application countywide of that policy. We've updated the personal leave section in the vacation and personal leave area, and then finally, under the military leave section, public safety employees are actually entitled to a greater number of military leave hours than others. So we updated that section too. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I'd just like to thank you and Eric and Corsa, for keeping us in front of this very complex area.
Yes.
Laws are constantly changing, best practices are constantly changing, and again, you and the whole team are doing a nice job of keeping us up to date, out in front, and participating in best practices.
So many new regulations that have to be followed, that we have to be up to date on, and
Very
so,
complex area.
I'm definitely confident that we are. And with this new, there wasn't that much that needed to be changed either. But,
Correct, yes.
but still, you've got to go through everything and then make sure that we've made the proper changes, so.
Yes, and if anything changes between now and the end of the year, we probably can just update those individual policies versus the entire manual overhaul. That really hasn't happened since we adopted this policy manual back in 2013. So this is our first big overhaul of the manual as a whole.
I bet you're glad it's behind you, almost, as soon as we pass it.
Yeah, we'll see. But no, again, thank you, and very important, need to be fair to our employees, we need to be, document what the best practices are and follow through on it, so, yeah. We'll take a vote.
Resolution 20-388, Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
We have one supplemental, I think, small one.
Resolution number 20-389, in the matter of approving supplemental appropriation from the unencumbered cash balance to the Law Library Resources Board Fund for the Law Library.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Fromer, County Administrator. We had a work session planned with the law library at the end of March, maybe? Or was it in April? Okay, in April. Because of the current circumstances, that was postponed. Obviously, the dialogue in the work session was going to be about their staffing changes and some of the changes that they made, and we were wanting to have that before we had to process, look at this supplemental. Because recognizing that we won't be able to conduct that meeting for a while, there was this is a partial supplemental just to cover things until we're able to schedule something maybe in July to, by the time July, this will cover us through July.
So
Okay, so we will have a
there will
discussion
be a
about
work,
the
yeah.
direction of the law library.
Yeah, this is just to allow their budget to maintain until like July 15th is when we targeted it. We assume that we'll be able to have that dialogue by then.
I'm very reluctant to vote on this positively. This was not the way this should have been handled. We should have been involved before the changes were made. And the reason I hesitate to make the motion is I really don't feel comfortable voting in favor of it. I feel like we're being put in a box, and this is not the way this should have been handled, in my opinion. I at least want to get that on the record.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Disagree.
And we've got to do better. So,
Yeah. You're saying we didn't find out about it
till after the fact.
till after the
Yeah.
fact, right? I know, that's
That,
true.
uh,
That's true. We've got to, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm disappointed we have to do this before we can have our planning session, with where the law library resources should go. But again, without the ability to have a hearing, it's kind of hard to do anything. So, okay, vote.
On motion 20-389, Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Brings us to administration reports.
Okay, Commissioners, Mike Farmer, County Administrator. Wanted to talk briefly about some of the work that we've been doing this week. The governor on Monday outlined kind of the phase one reopening. We were, I think, anxiously waiting to hear what was said at the conference that day. And we have been working prior to that conference, press conference by the governor on what we knew were going to be things that would need to happen before we would reopen. I have to give, a lot of credit and thanks to, Brian Gallagher, Sean Miller, and our facilities group. They have been working through this whole process over the last month and a half, getting cleaning supplies in place. We're building plexiglass barriers for areas that we know that we're not going to be able to provide the 6-foot, clearance. And once again, they've done an outstanding job, with that. Based on what, I will caveat, because we have not seen the revised stay-at-home order. We have not, we're just going off of what was presented, and then the graphics that are on the website of Restart Ohio, which for general office, which we're being told that will fall under. General office, and that was told to me by the director of CCAO and also the health department, but those requirements have changed 3 times since.
That's the challenging part.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a moving target. Our plan and approach all along first was to see whether we were in a position based on the guidance that was provided by the governor to open. We feel that with the proactive work of our facilities department, safety security group, EMA, we are in a position to begin that process. And it will be a gradual process. So we have put together documents that we, first want to share with you guys today, and then the other elected officials, and work towards some type of consensus on, I would like to say, very clearly that it would be a very gradual. Most businesses that, Bob and I were on a webinar with some CEOs yesterday, their business have been their doors have been shut and they're opening up. Our doors have been shut off, but we've been doing essential services. So our startup is going to be more gradual. And really because we provide public service, it'll be kind of a ramp up. We had that ramp down where, I've said several times in the Hayes building, we went from 600 people a day down to, probably 30 the last day before we closed. We're probably going to start on the opposite side of that as we generally, reopen. We'll probably start where we'll have 20 to 30 and ramp up as the stay-at-home order is lifted. With the stay-at-home order in place, we don't anticipate a lot of our public use being ramping up. The orders also require to continue teleworking. We're going to keep using our drop boxes and our electronic submission of things, which has been very successful. I was telling somebody earlier today during this whole process, I've not received one complaint about a resident not feeling like they could get serviced during this. So there might be out there, maybe you guys have heard something, but it feels like we've been able to provide that service. So the plan, I think a lot of the dialogue centers around face coverings. That's been the change. The three different changes back and forth, whether to require those of people working in the office and in what conditions. Like I said, we've put together these preliminary guidelines for you guys to weigh in, and then also the other elected officials, so that we could work on some consensus, to make a decision for Monday.
I'd just like to say again, thank you to you and Sean and Brian and Dawn and Eric, and I mean, just in putting together this new plan now.
There was probably 120 to 150 emails that were exchanged yesterday on the topic.
Just
Don't shake it around.
oh my gosh.
I'd just like to reinforce what Commissioner Lewis said. I think your leadership and all those directors and elected officials have done a tremendous job, and the complaints that I have been very, very, very few and far between, and I think the residents of our county probably feel pretty comfortable that we've done a good job of managing a situation that is unfortunate, and I think we've done a good job getting through it, and congratulations to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, same. I don't think I've heard a single complaint about the county's services. I've heard complaints about businesses not being open, and we all know that needs to happen as soon as absolutely possible, and we're moving forward on that. But, so again, thanks to you, and one person that's key in this is Jane. She's got to
yes,
put the
that's
communication. I know she's sent out emails and gathered a lot of information and so on, but her website is very important to continue to communicate how all the departments and offices are providing their services to the residents and businesses. So please, I would encourage everyone to make sure that you get your updates to her as soon as possible, so she can keep the website current. But
The only other thing I'd like to add is, currently we're looking at self-assessment. One of the things is testing of the public and employees, and we're looking at a self-assessment protocol which meets the guidance that has been provided. I think that's been in addition to the face coverings, that's another item of a lot of, questions. So, and once again, I think that, some departments who have been more essential services, you're going to see very little change potentially next week with the reopening. Others, you're going to start to see some activity. And once again, we need to kind of mirror the ramp up. We don't want to bring a bunch of employees congregated to when we don't have the public there to service yet. So it's kind of a gradual ramp up, so.
I'd just like to add the employees, how they've managed through this whole, we didn't really talk about
Right,
that.
that's
but
right, the employees.
I think the elected officials have done a good job managing their staffing, and certainly in our areas. And kudos to our employees as well for how they've handled it.
Right.
I agree. Great job there as well. Other comments, Mike? Okay. Commissioner Lewis?
Oh, I'm sorry, now we're doing our reports.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just, as Mike was talking, I'm just thinking of all the people that I need to add to thank, and you mentioned also Jane, and Jane with her timely press releases and staying on top of everything, and with the social media today, I mean, being so important. Even more so than usual. She's on top of all that. I do want to thank our clerk, Sarah, and Jen for their steadfast work in keeping us on track with all we have too. So I do want to thank also Treasurer Mike Ringel and Auditor George Keitza for their work on the property tax delay. They reached out to so many people, the auditor I know, checking in with schools, checking in with trustees, and you know, just a whole list of people before we moved ahead on this. And so they deserve a lot of thanks, and then the treasurer's going to implement it. So we'll give him a shout out too.
Tax director, and it's always a little
That's
asterisk
right,
on that.
that's
We have to
right.
get approval from the state. But I would like to just kind of build on that and thank all the townships, the agencies, the school districts that stood up and said, okay, we can help.
That's
This
right.
is the way we can help our residents and businesses. We're going to do it. And they all unanimously. There
Yes,
wasn't one who
yes.
was opposed to it. So that's remarkable.
It is remarkable. Says a lot about Delaware County.
Commitment to the residents, businesses, and the county.
Right, right.
I just like to add, I think it's a good program and a lot of work was done, but those who have the ability to pay their taxes should make every effort to pay them on time.
Sure.
Because this is intended to help those
Right.
who have
Right.
circumstances beyond their control.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to work and for the schools and the townships to have the money to do their job, it's important that property taxes come in as soon as
Yes.
possible. And certainly those who are able to pay should pay on time without taking advantage of
Sure,
what we're trying to make available to those who are struggling.
sure, absolutely.
Just
Yeah,
a-
one other thing, you know, I don't think a lot of people appreciate the perspective of how big a property tax payment is, but on average, it's equivalent to about 3 mortgage payments. You know, so it's a big, you know, cash flow for the residents and businesses who are stressed. I mean, again, it's roughly equal to about 3 mortgage
Three
payments.
mortgage payments. I didn't realize.
So it's a big help, you know, having to be able to postpone the equivalent of 3 mortgage payments for 6 weeks really helps a lot of people.
Yeah,
Businesses. Anyway,
Oh, that's all I have.
okay, Commissioner Merrill.
I have 3 or 4 things. First of all, I thank you. The Asian Indian Alliance, I had an opportunity to talk to Sanjay Sudana a couple weeks ago, and they've donated 500 masks. EMA coordinated that with them. And so just a shout out to the Asian Indian Alliance. It was extremely generous of them to do that, and wanted to make sure that that was made known to our taxpayers. A point of clarification, I got an email yesterday saying that the blood drive had been canceled, and I kind of shook my head and thought, well, I guess it's because of the virus. And then I got an email later saying that it wasn't canceled, and the reality is it is not canceled, but there was some confusion. The Red Cross apparently sent out an email yesterday morning and indicating it was canceled, so it is on, at least according to what I was told before this meeting started. And so I'm told that, I think what the intent was, they were canceling the location, but that's not what it said. It said canceling the blood drive, and it should have probably said, just referencing a change in location to the Wellness Center. So, but it's unfortunate. My fear is that somebody might have got the initial email and would think that the blood drive and blood right now is going to be extremely important. So just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. Corsa, we had a board meeting yesterday at 10 o'clock, and an unusual time for these organizations, and of course it has to do with the providing insurance, property and liability for 66 of the counties in our state. And it was a virtual meeting yesterday. We're going to hopefully have a physical meeting at June 12th. And I believe SEPCO has a meeting this Friday, but it's virtual, I assume. So there's a lot going on, a lot that needs to be done, and but the board's working very well together, and we're going to get through it. And fortunately, in the case of course, it's well-funded, and we're in a good position, but we want to stay in that good position as we move through this pandemic. And I believe that's all I have.
We have, well, I'll wait till Commissioner
Regional
Benton.
planning, we have regional planning
Yeah, regional
tonight. It's
planning
going to
is-
be a virtual meeting, so that's going to be interesting.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it sure will be.
Yeah, there's a lot of, look like a lot of agenda items, but they seem to be fairly routine, so, but it'll be interesting.
This will be
at first.
real interesting to
first
see how
virtual
that
meeting.
goes.
And because it's going to be virtual, getting quorum could be important, so it's probably important that we all
Sure.
participate.
Yeah, I'll be on it.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple other things. Let's see, Morpsey continues to meet and move things along, not as planned and not everything they were originally working on, but they do continue to move things along and getting good communication and good information out of Morpsey. So I want to thank them. We do have the SEPCO board meeting, as Commissioner Merrill mentioned. SEPCO board meeting is tomorrow morning. Same sort of thing. SEPCO's in excellent financial shape and should be able to weather the storm well, but they're trying to work with their counties and so on to figure out ways to help the counties through it as well. We had the legislative update last Friday, which is actually interesting. Rick Carfani was the only legislator on the call this time, but Rick's working on a number of things at the State House. He's on that task force that the Speaker of the House put together to restart the economy, and they're working on a number of things. One of them that they are working on that's very important to me, and I think the businesses, is the legal liability protection. That hopefully will be in the next round of legislation that the state puts together to protect the businesses and agencies and so on, hospitals that will need protection from that. And then the township call last Thursday evening went very well, as I mentioned earlier. Ryan Rivers, the chair of that Delaware County Township Association, put this together, and I think all the townships were on the call. It was very well attended. Ryan did a nice job. Bob Lamb spoke. I talked about some of the things we're doing. And it was just very well attended. And again, great support for working together and helping the businesses and residents through this. So it was very, very well done. And again, just mainly communication, so of all the different things that we're working on, but very well done by Ryan. So that's all I have. Sarah, we do have need for executive session, lots of needs for executive session.
Lots of needs.
Resolution number 20-390, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of employment, compensation of a public employee or public official for pending or imminent litigation, for collective bargaining, for security arrangements and emergency response protocols.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-390. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're in executive session. This one a little longer.
Resolution number 20-391, in the matter of adjourning out of executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 20-391. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
All right, with that, we're back in session, but no further business. We are adjourned.